Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are undertaking a really emotionally challenging, but I think profoundly necessary analysis. We're talking about how to manage that persistent, often daily request from someone living with dementia. I want to go home. It's just so heartbreaking for caregivers because, the person is usually already in the safest place possible, yet their distress it's completely real. So we've taken a deep dive into some specialized sources on behavioral gerontology to move past just the raw emotion and get to, well, truly actionable strategies. To ground this, let's start with a scenario the sources use a lot, the case of a woman we'll call Mrs. A. Every single evening, right around 5:30 p.m., Mrs. A would start this very deliberate practice packing ritual. She'd collect her essential items, 2 sweaters, her Bible, a pair of church shoes, a hairbrush, and the key item, a photo of her 3 children when they were small. And her explanation was always the same. I have to get home. The children will be worried.
And that image just encapsulates the entire problem, doesn't it? It's an impossible situation for the caregiver. They know Mrs. A is safe, but they can't seem to alleviate her urgent, profound distress. What we realize, though, when we observe this pattern, this exit-seeking, this ritualized packing, is that it is rarely, if ever, about a physical location. It's predictable, but only if you know what the behavior is actually communicating. So our mission today is to clarify exactly what those communications are. We're extracting a framework of behavioral interventions designed to reduce that fear and uncertainty, both for the person experiencing it and, just as importantly, to give exhausted caregivers strategies that genuinely work.
Okay, let's unpack the core function of this behavior. If Mrs. A is safe and her children are grown, what is the brain really looking for when it says home?
Right, we have to shift our thinking entirely. The brain is not requesting a GPS coordinate, it is requesting an emotional state. The sources, they break down the underlying causes into 5 interconnected needs, and all of them are fundamentally tied to this feeling of security. The first one, and it's the most basic, is safety. For someone whose cognitive world is deteriorating, becoming unpredictable, home is the ultimate source of comfort, of familiarity. The current environment, no matter how kind or how safe it actually is, just feels unstable to them.
That makes incredible sense. So the world has become this giant variable, and the brain just defaults to the one memory state it trusts implicitly.
Exactly. But it gets more complex when we add the next 2 points, identity and routine memory. The person is often seeking their historical self, the version of themselves from their 20s or 30s or 40s. That version had a clear job, a clear role, clear responsibilities.
Like raising children.
Yeah.
So when Mrs. A says the children will be worried, she's not thinking about the 60-year-old adults she raised.
Not at all. She is worried about the 3 small children from the photo she packed.
So that's the time-shifted memory loop they talk about.
Precisely. Older, deeply entrenched routine memories, like making dinner or picking up kids from school, they're preserved much longer than recent ones. So if they internally feel the age they associate with that historical home, their current reality is completely dissonant. It's terrifying.
That's a really powerful insight for a caregiver.
Okay.
You're not dealing with an 85-year-old trying to leave. You're dealing with a 35-year-old mother who panics.
Absolutely. And the last 2 points are critical triggers. Unmet needs. This could be anything from physical discomfort, needing the toilet, being too cold, too hot, hungry, or in pain, to, sensory overload, too much noise, flickering lights. All of that can manifest as this urgent need to escape. The core takeaway here, before we even get to strategy, is non-negotiable. Home is an emotional state. It's a search for security tied to a past identity, not a navigational error. You cannot correct a feeling with a map.
And this realization about the function of the behavior, that it's a search for security, not an attempt to manipulate, that leads us right to the foundational approach the sources recommend. Applied behavior analysis, or ABA. Now, I know some listeners might hear ABA and have associations with, well, very rigid therapeutic models, but the sources we reviewed make it very clear that in gerontology, this is simply a structure for understanding behavior, not for control, not for coercion.
That's right. In this context, ABA is purely a framework for observation that leads to compassionate intervention. We use the structure to find the function, identify the triggers, and then offer a safe, comforting alternative. The goal is to reinforce calm, not to win a debate about geography.
So the practical starting point for the caregiver, which is step 1, is to identify the pattern. They use the ABCs: antecedents, behavior, consequences. Why is this tracking so necessary? Why can't we just jump ahead to redirection?
Because without identifying the antecedent, the thing that happens right before, you are constantly intervening in a crisis. And that is just exhausting, and it's often unsuccessful. You need to find the environmental cue. So using the Mrs. A example, If your tracking shows the antecedent is every day between 4:45 and 6 p.m. after the kitchen lights dim and the evening news starts, you suddenly have a roadmap. You
Mhm.
realize it's a response to these environmental signals. Dim light, more noise, the end of the day, not randomness. And that preserves the caregiver's energy immensely.
Knowing that window lets you intervene proactively, which leads us right into the most powerful strategies, controlling the environment. Step 2 is fix the environment first. And the sources really stress that these environmental fixes often work faster than any dialogue. We often talk about sundowning, and the sources confirm this is the crucial window. The fading light signals to the brain that its orientation systems are failing.
And the urge to flee just escalates. The strategies here are entirely proactive. You have to physically brighten the lights before dusk, not wait until it's already dim, close blinds early, get rid of that visual confusion outside, turn on soft, familiar music from their young adulthood, reduce noise and chaos from, the TV or other family members.
I noticed the sources also mention making the room warmer. Is there a physiological reason for that specific cue?
Yes. Increased anxiety often causes a physical sensation of coldness, and fatigue makes it worse. So, creating a physically warm, predictable, and sensory soothing environment, soft lighting, familiar sound, warm temperature, it's neurologically reassuring. We are sending a constant, gentle message to the brain. You are secure. You are not alone. It is not time to panic.
So once the environment is set, we move to the communication. This is step 3, and it's the hardest one for so many. Don't correct reality, join it gently.
This is where we confront the caregiver's internal conflict. The instinct is to protect with factual truth. You are home, or your kids are adults. Why is that so hard to avoid?
Because you think you're helping. You're trying to restore the person to reality so they stop panicking.
Exactly. But for the person with dementia, that factual truth lands as a brutal attack on their reality. It causes panic, it causes fear, and deep, deep shame. When you deny their lived experience, that panic of needing to feed the children, you break trust. We have to offer emotional truth instead of factual truth. Acknowledge the feeling. If they insist the house is wrong, you say, "Tell me about home," or "What do you miss most about it?" This validates the longing without confirming the impossible.
I love that classic validation technique. Let's sit for a moment while we figure out the best time to go.
It completely acknowledges their urgency.
But it doesn't confirm the trip. It buys you time, and time is your greatest asset. The emotional truth is always kinder. Telling Mrs. A that the house she raised her children in has been bulldozed. That creates profound, unnecessary heartbreak. But acknowledging that she misses her family and that feeling of responsibility, that is gentle care. That sets us up perfectly for the next stage. The memory loop is demanding movement and action, that I have to get up and go. You can't just stop it. The sources suggest we have to honor that urge. This moves us to honoring the urge in action. The urge to go is behavioral momentum that kind of needs to be satisfied. What are the sources suggesting to satisfy that urge to move when they're clearly trying to leave?
You use a technique called a safe travel ritual. Since the underlying function is often this need to move or a sense of responsibility, you redirect that physical energy. You redirect it into a safe, temporary action. So instead of arguing at the front door, you can suggest a short, supervised walk together, down the hallway or even just around the garden. The brain registers, "I am moving toward my goal," and that satisfies the motor pattern.
But wait a minute, if the goal is safety, how can we possibly rationalize walking them toward the door or even down the hall? Doesn't that risk reinforcing the exit seeking?
That is the crucial friction point. The goal is not to stop the movement. The goal is to reinforce calm movement in a safe, contained space. The brain gets the reward of movement and action, but without achieving the high-stakes goal of actually exiting into danger. And other rituals work too, creating a calming bus stop bench area with soft lighting near a non-exit door, or, as we said, that warm drink ritual. The trip is long, let's have some tea before we check the schedule.
And as they're moving or sitting, step 5 is to offer those familiar identity anchors. You're soothing the identity crisis that underlies the panic.
Absolutely. When someone feels lost and uncertain about their location, they're often uncertain about who they are, their capabilities. You have to remind them of their competent, responsible past identity. For Mrs. A, you would say, "You always took such good care of your children. They're safe tonight." Or, if she's packing, "You've always been so responsible and prepared. Let's check your bag together to make sure everything is perfect." That reassurance, tied to their competence, is profoundly calming.
And this connects to the common question about the packing ritual itself. Since Mrs. A packs the same things every night, should the caregiver try to stop her from doing that?
The source material is very clear. No. Do not interrupt the ritual. Packing is self-soothing. It provides a deep sense of control in a world that feels overwhelmingly out of control. It satisfies that behavioral loop linked to preparation and responsibility. Interrupting it just generates frustration and anger.
Okay, let's move to the essential topic of step 6.
Right.
Safety in crisis. How do we keep the environment secure without introducing shame or that prison feel?
Right. Physical measures have to be subtle. Use door alarms that chime softly, just to alert the caregiver, not to startle the resident. A really powerful strategy is using door murals or camouflaged coverings, things that simply distract the eye, turning a door into just part of the wallpaper. Locks should be placed very high or very low, out of the standard line of sight, so they're less likely to be noticed.
I want to reinforce a crucial refusal point the sources highlight here regarding dignity. Never, under any circumstances, take away their shoes or their coat, even if they're actively trying to leave. This instantly removes their sense of dignity, it makes them feel like a prisoner, and it profoundly damages trust. The answer is environmental and behavioral support, not physical constraint.
And we also have to touch on handling escalations. If they transition from fearful to angry, or if they accuse the caregiver of trapping them, which is a common expression of fear, do not debate the accusation. You must validate the emotion first. You're scared, I hear you. The accusation itself is a symptom of that fear. If blocking the door or even just your physical proximity leads to aggression, step back immediately. Safety and dignity always come first.
And what about night wandering? It's often related to the I need to go home impulse, but it happens while everyone else is sleeping.
Our sources suggest night wandering is frequently triggered by discomfort, loneliness, or a need to use the toilet that they can't quite articulate or locate. So the fixes are structural. A bedside motion light that turns on softly, a strict nighttime toileting routine, or providing a soothing anchor like a weighted blanket.
And remember that redirection has to be personalized. If you use an activity to redirect the urge to leave, it must be meaningful to their history. Generic distraction, like just turning on the TV, it rarely works. Mrs. A might respond well to folding towels or sorting silverware because that aligns with her past identity. You're re-engaging the responsible part of their identity.
Let's bring this all together with our final strategy, step 7. Reinforce calm and connection. This is the long-term work.
Every single time they voluntarily sit, engage, or appear calmer, it needs to be gently reinforced. You can say things like, I like sitting with you, or you look calmer now, thank you for resting with me. You are rewarding the state you want to encourage, a state of security, not the anxious state of exit seeking.
The final analysis of the source material confirms that while, yes, underlying anxiety may benefit from medication, the primary and most effective intervention for this memory loop is behavioral, environmental, and emotional support. Medication can't resolve the specific cognitive dissonance that's tied to their past identity.
So what does this all mean? I think it means the core philosophy is that connection reduces this exit-seeking panic better than logic or correction or debate ever could. You are dealing with a person whose brain is actively trying to protect them by sending them on an impossible quest to a past self. And this is why you must explain this to other family members. They are not manipulating you. They are responding to a cognitive state that prioritizes survival and past duty.
We want to address you, the listener, directly, especially if you are the primary caregiver dealing with this daily ritual. This behavior is profoundly exhausting, it's confusing, and it is heartbreaking. You are doing heroic work in what is truly an unfixable situation.
Your job is not to fix the disease. Your job is to reduce fear and provide security for a person whose mind is trying to protect them by sending them back in time. If you're a caregiver, you deserve as much compassion as you give. Remember that it's human to feel overwhelmed, frustrated, and inadequate when you're faced with a memory loop you know you cannot break.
The heroism here really lies in understanding the underlying function of this quest and just responding with emotional truth.
So here's a final provocative thought for you to consider. If Mrs. A's deepest need is to feel like the competent mother who ensures her children are safe, what simple daily ritual could you introduce that allows her to exercise that historical essential feeling of competence and responsibility without requiring her to pack a bag to leave? That's where the power of connection really lies.